The sun, a giant orb of molten gold, began its descent over Sarnath's vast plains, painting the tranquil landscape with amber and rose hues. A gentle breeze stirred tall emerald grasses, causing them to sway in a mesmerizing, rhythmic dance, while distant deer calls echoed serenely. This sacred space, bathed in fading light, held a quiet anticipation, a palpable hush before a momentous revelation unfolded. Loch Lomond, or Deer Park, was a hallowed sanctuary in ancient India. A
The
verdant
path to
haven for monks
stillness
and
requires
wandering
releasing
seekers.
attachment to the
They sought
self.
solace,
But how does one
meditated,
release
and
what
shared
they do
wisdom
not
there,
yet
fostering
understand?
introspection. But this evening held a moment of unprecedented magnitude. The air hummed with an unspoken promise. The Buddha, the awakened one, would deliver his inaugural teaching this evening. With profound clarity and boundless compassion, he would set in motion the majestic wheel of Dharma, illuminating countless beings. With incomparable grace and inner peace, character C1, the Buddha, walked calmly along the dusty path into Deer Park. His ochre robe fluttered lightly, his steps emanated serenity, and a knowing smile reflected boundless compassion, touching all. Birds fell silent, their heads tilted, herds of deer paused, their gentle eyes fixed intently upon character C1. Even ancient trees seemed to lean inward, straining to listen to the silent wisdom character C1 carried. This was the newly enlightened one, the Buddha, who had transcended human limitations, shimmering with profound awakening's residue. His presence was a beacon of peace, wisdom, and universal love, resonating deeply, altering the grove's fabric. 6 weeks after his awakening beneath the Bodhi tree, boundless compassion surged in character C1's heart. His journey to Deer Park was a sacred pilgrimage, driven by immense love, eager to impart the Dharma. Ahead, beneath an old acacia tree, 5 ascetics, including Kondana, sat in quiet contemplation. These were companions from his arduous journey of extreme austerity, bound by paths, but with a recent rift. Once closest companions, their paths diverged when Siddhartha chose moderation over extreme self-mortification, accepting milk rice. Feeling betrayed, they abandoned him, retreating to Deer Park, convinced he had failed in his quest. As character C1 approached,
Look who approaches.
a murmur
Is that
rippled
him?
through the
It is the
ascetics.
Sakyan.
Their
He has
faces
abandoned the
hardened by
severe path.
self-denial
He
and
seeks the
resentment.
middle way, they say.
One ascetic
Weakness.
spoke,
This
declaring
middle way you
Siddhartha
speak of is
unworthy
merely
of
weakness
reverence,
disguised as
having
wisdom.
forsaken self-denial
You have
for worldly
deviated,
comforts.
and the consequences
There
will be
was
yours
a
alone.
fragile shield against truth, resolved no welcome. Yet, a profound, unexplainable shift began. It was an intuitive response, something greater than pride, as the air thickened with silent, compelling force. As character C1 drew nearer, his presence became an undeniable, all-encompassing experience, his radiance intensifying. This serene emanation, defying notions, bypassed intellect, speaking directly to the ascetics' hearts. Under character C1's radiant influence, their rigid pride walls, built from years of discipline, began to melt. Their resolve crumbled, profound softening permeated hearts, dissolving resentment, an involuntary response to purity. Before conscious thought, the 5 ascetics found themselves rising, propelled by irresistible respect and reverence. They stood, gazing intently at character C1, then spontaneously, instinctively bowed, a profound veneration. With a quiet, compassionate smile, character C1 greeted
Greetings,
them,
friend.
his voice a soft balm upon their
May
receptive
you find
hearts.
peace on your
His
journey.
calm tone, devoid of reproach, filled with overflowing loving kindness. Disarmed lingering hesitation, a profound blessing. Humbled and captivated, the 5 ascetics sat quietly before character C1. Defensiveness replaced by awe and receptivity. An undeniable anticipation rippled through them, something profound, world-altering, was about to unfold. Character C1 took his place on a natural grass mound, and wild deer, drawn by his aura, gathered closer. A reverential breeze rustled leaves, as if nature itself prepared to receive the profound truth. Character C1 looked directly at his first students, the 5 ascetics, with eyes of timeless wisdom and compassion. With a clear, resonant voice, he began, "Monks, one seeking liberation must avoid two
Brothers,
extremes."
The enlightenment
Character
we
C1
seek is not
clarified the
beyond
first
us.
extreme, the
It
pursuit of
resides
pleasure
within the
and sensual
stillness of the
indulgence,
present moment.
describing
There are
it
two
as base and
extremes to
unprofitable.
avoid.
The
He
first
explained
is the
indulgence
immersion in the
binds one to
pleasures of the
craving and
senses,
dissatisfaction,
which is
warning
degrading and
against worldly
fruitless.
delights fleeting allure.
Sensual indulgence
Character C1 explained
binds
this extreme,
one to craving.
surrendering to senses, pursuing exquisite tastes, scents, sounds, sensations.
To truly live
sights.
is to pursue
Such
sensual
pursuits offer
indulgence.
momentary
We
gratification,
seek exquisite
but are
tastes,
transient,
intoxicating
fostering
Momentary
attachment,
gratification
leading to
leads
frustration,
inevitably to
sorrow,
attachment,
and
then
entanglement.
frustration,
With
and
equal
finally,
conviction, Character
entanglement.
C1 presented
There
the
are two
second
extremes
extreme,
to avoid.
the practice of
We have discussed the
self-torture.
first. The
Familiar
second is
to
the
ascetic.
path of self-torture,
He described
which
this
offers
path
no
as equally
liberation.
painful,
To inflict such
ignoble,
pain upon
and
the body is
unprofitable,
unprofitable.
offering profound
True
insight,
liberation
not
lies
judgment.
not in
Character
self-mortification,
C1
but
explains
in balance.
self-torture,
The mistaken-
inflicting physical
The
hardship and
mistaken
mental
belief that we
anguish.
must inflict harshness
Believing
upon
it
the body
purifies the soul.
distracts from the true path.
Despite sincere desire, it
You
You
proved
have disciplined the
unproductive,
body,
causing
yet this
unnecessary
alone will
pain,
not end
weakening
suffering.
mind and body,
This path is
without
ultimately
yielding nirvana's
unproductive
peace.
for achieving true
After
liberation.
presenting both extremes, Character C1 is calm, knowing eyes sweeping over the five ascetics. With profound serenity,
There are
he
two
declared,
extremes to
avoiding
avoid.
both extremes.
The enlightened
The
one
Tathagata
teaches
has
the middle
discovered the
way,
middle way.
which opens the
Character
eyes and
C1
leads to
elaborated
peace.
on the middle way's benefits.
This middle way
It
gives vision
gives
and knowledge, leading
This
to
vision was
tranquility
unclouded
and
insight
profound
into reality,
insight.
knowledge, deep experiential wisdom, illuminating the path forward. Character C1 continued, the middle way leads to inner peace. A profound stillness
The
transcending
path to
worldly
liberation is not
disturbances.
found in excess,
It also leads to
nor in
direct
severe
knowledge,
denial.
an intuitive understanding
middle
grasping
way.
truth instantly, cutting
You
through
must
illusions.
cut through the
The
illusions
middle way is
created by the
pinnacle.
mind
It leads
to
directly
attain
to
direct
enlightenment
knowledge
and
of the
nirvana.
truth.
Full awakening
True
and
enlightenment
freedom.
lies not in the
Nirvana,
extremes, but in the
profound freedom
balanced
from
path.
suffering.
This middle way
Cessation of
leads to
craving,
nirvana,
unshakable
the end
peace,
of all suffering.
ultimate liberation from
Seek
rebirth.
the path of
As
cessation,
Character C1
for only
spoke,
there will you
Dear
find
Park's
true
atmosphere
liberation
responded,
and
the wind
unshakable
still,
peace.
holding motionless in
See
the
how
air.
the grove listens.
Their group quieter,
When we
almost
find
imperceptibly
stillness
still,
within,
tuned to his
the
voice,
world
and
around
the
us
sky
finds
darkened,
peace.
creating sacred
It is
twilight.
quiet now.
With calm grace,
The day
Character
gives way
C1
to the
raised
night,
his hand,
and we
affirming,
find
the
peace
middle way is the
in the
noble eightfold
stillness.
path.
This
This
is
was
the
the
living
practical
practice.
blueprint for awakening.
Walk
A
the
living
path
practice
with
guiding seekers
diligence,
to ultimate
and
freedom.
freedom is assured.
With quiet, unassailable
The noble
authority.
truth of suffering,
Character
dukkha,
C1
is
began.
this.
This is the
Birth
first.
is suffering,
The noble
aging
truth of
is suffering,
suffering,
illness
or
is
dukkha.
suffering, death is
He
suffering.
spoke of pervasive unsatisfactoriness in conditioned existence, a subtle disease woven into life's fabric. Character C1 enumerated
The first
suffering
is the
forms.
reality of
Birth
suffering,
is
the second the
suffering.
origin
Aging
of that
is
suffering,
suffering.
the third
Illness
the
is
cessation,
suffering.
and the
Each
fourth the
pronouncement
path to
resonated with
liberation.
the ascetics, who had witnessed and experienced these painful realities. Character C1 continued, death is suffering, highlighting loss
Birth
and
is
fear,
suffering,
union with
aging
what
is suffering,
disliked
and
is
death
suffering.
is suffering.
Separation
To be
from
separated
is
from
loved
what
is
you want
suffering,
is also
and
suffering.
not attaining one's wishes is suffering.
The pain of
Addressing deep
separation
human
lingers
anguish.
like a shadow,
Character C1
and our
concluded the
desires
first
remain
truth.
forever
In short,
out of reach.
clinging to the
This is
five
the noble
aggregates of
truth
suffering.
of suffering's origin.
This revelation
It is the
pointed to
craving that
clinging to
produces
body,
renewal,
feelings,
accompanied by
perceptions,
pleasure and delight.
Formations, consciousness as dukkha's root. A profound silence descended upon the ascetics. An internal stillness. A moment of deep recognition. Character C1, a mirror, reflected suffering as a visceral reality, deeply resonating with their experiences.
The truth is not
Character
found
C1
in
moved to the
denial,
second revelation,
but in the
noble truth
visceral
of the origin
reality
of
of our
suffering.
suffering.
Its insidious cause.
Behold,
His
the
unwavering
noble
gaze guided
truth of
listeners
the
to
origin of
introspection,
suffering.
revealing
It is the craving
insidious
for
force deep
existence,
within the
the
human
thirst
heart.
for pleasure.
Character C1 revealed the root. The root of suffering is craving, tanha, for pleasure, existence, non-existence.
Craving,
This powerful,
in its many
relentless
forms, for
craving,
pleasure,
he
for
explained,
existence, and
was
for
the engine of
non-existence,
dissatisfaction,
is the true root
perpetuating the
of all
cycle.
suffering.
Character
This
C1
engine
clarified
of craving,
perpetuated
always
existence.
turning,
This craving
is the
leads to
sole
rebirth,
source of our
sorrow,
dissatisfaction.
despair, and pain.
It is craving
It
that
fueled
binds
new
us to the cycle of
existences,
rebirth.
trapping beings in
Only by
samsara's
relinquishing
relentless
desire
loop,
can we find the path
perpetually
to
seeking,
liberation and end
unsatisfied.
suffering.
Look
Hearing
closely.
Character
The
C1's
turning you
explanation,
feel is the turning
the five
within.
ascetics bowed
It
in
is
silent
craving that binds
acknowledgement,
you to the endless
deeply
cycle of
resonating.
dissatisfaction.
This realization cut illusions, exposing their entanglement, urging introspection into their life's cravings. Having illuminated suffering's cause, Character C1 unveiled the liberating solution, the noble truth of the cessation of suffering. He spoke of an
Hope
attainable
is the
reality,
light that guides
profound
us through
freedom
the
within
darkness.
reach, transforming despair
Embrace
into
this
possibility,
truth
bondage to
and be
liberation.
free.
Character
The path to
C1
freedom is not
elucidated
found in
when craving is
denial,
abandoned,
but in understanding.
suffering ceases.
Release
The
your
direct path to
attachments,
liberation.
and you shall find
He
peace.
named this freedom
The
nirvana,
direct path
highest
to
peace,
liberation
unshakable mind,
is
extinguishing
abandoning
greed,
craving.
hatred, delusion, ultimate liberation. A tremor of immense hope passed through the ascetics' hearts for complete, unshakable liberation and peace. Their hearts, once hardened, now vibrated with fervent aspiration for this highest peace, articulated clearly. Character C1 revealed the practical means, the noble truth of the path leading to the cessation of suffering. This detailed guide, the actionable framework, offered a step-by-step
way out of
methodology
suffering
for
is
spiritual
not
awakening
obscure.
and liberation.
It is a practical
Character
path
C1
requiring
enumerated the
discipline of
transformative
mind,
path.
speech,
This
The
is the
glowing
Noble
framework
Eightfold
illustrates the practice.
He began with
Observe
right
the
view,
breath, quiet the
intention.
senses,
He
and thus
continued
achieve
with right
release from
speech,
all attachments.
action,
The
and
path
livelihood,
begins with
the
right
ethical
view,
foundations,
understanding the nature of
essential
suffering.
moral precepts
This
for
is followed
seekers.
by right intention, the
Character
commitment to
C1
liberation
continued,
and goodwill.
right effort,
Therefore,
diligent
ascetics,
exertion,
the foundation
right
is this:
mindfulness,
right
clear,
speech,
non-judgmental
right
awareness
action,
of self,
and right
and
livelihood.
right
Right
concentration,
effort is the commitment to
developing
purify
deep
the
meditative
mind.
states,
And right
forming a
mindfulness
holistic
allows us to
approach
remain
enlightenment.
attentive, aware of the present
As
moment
Character
without
C1
judgment.
articulated the
Thus,
eightfold path,
the path
a
culminates
subtle
in right
transformation occurred
concentration.
in the grove.
When the mind is
The
unified
grove
and
glowed
purified,
brighter. An inner
unshakable
dawn-defying
liberation is
twilight,
attained.
illuminating the path with ethereal light.
When the mind is
As Character
tranquil,
C1 concluded,
the world
a profound
around you
stillness settled
reflects
over
that
dear path,
peace.
a quiet of deep, receptive absorption.
Embrace the
In
dawn
that sacred
within,
quietude, Kondana experienced
for it
the
is
first
the
profound
purest
breakthrough.
light.
His mind poised for
द्वार
liberation.
diet berdat okus
Within
mitin
Kondana,
salvit
powerful
detin.
clarity surged,
Dilata
dispelling
sapit yanan.
ignorance, revealing truth with
Uzer
absolute
is
certainty,
divkin.
freeing his mind. He attained the Dhamma, a direct, intuitive grasp of impermanence and interconnectedness, the first enlightenment stage. Overwhelmed, Kondana bowed deeply, tears of joy streaming, voice choked. Whatever arises is
Truly,
destined to cease.
The truth has been
Character C1
revealed.
smiled radiantly.
I
Anya
see it
Kondana
now.
knows,
The
affirming
cessation
Kondana
of
had
all
understood the
sorrow.
truth. This moment, etched in history, marked the first time a Buddha recognized a disciple's awakening. Kondana became Character C1's first disciple. The majestic wheel of Dharma had turned for the first time. Throughout the sermon, gentle deer drew closer, their intelligent eyes fixed on Character C1 with unwavering attention. Villagers paused, spellbound by the serene features surrounded
True
by
peace
tranquil
is not
animals.
found in the absence
Character
of
C1's
noise,
voice carried
but in the
effortlessly.
stillness of the mind.
The
The
profound
path
truth
to wisdom
resonated
begins
beyond the
within.
grove, reaching unseen realms. Devas rejoiced with ethereal music. Flowers. The earth vibrated softly. Character C1
The path
concluded
to
his
freedom
sermon,
is not found
looking
in the
at his
world
first
outside,
community with
but
overflowing
within your
compassion.
own heart.
Character C1
Embrace
said
this
gently,
peace.
with profound
Your
conviction,
diligent effort
"Mark,
is the flame.
the path to freedom
Let
and
your
unwavering
awakening
peace is
ignite
open.
the light that
Walk
guides
it with
all
unwavering
beings out of
mindfulness.
darkness.
Liberation of all depends on each seeker's diligent effort. One by one, the profoundly moved ascetics bowed deeply to Character C1, their hearts transformed by wisdom. Shackles of misunderstanding fell, replaced by radiant clarity, guiding their every breath toward liberation. Character C1 rose, serene, walking slowly through the sacred grove, there clearing a respectful path. Above, the indigo sky shone with 1,000 twinkling stars, mirroring the profound awakening on earth. The world entered a new era. Dharma, the universal truth, was spoken, foundational for liberation. Sangha began its sacred
Observe
journey.
the nature of
Character
suffering,
C1 became
its
a true
origin,
teacher,
its
and Deer
cessation,
Park,
and the
teaching's
path that
birthplace.
leads to lasting
This inaugural
peace.
sermon was a cosmic event, a reverberation across all realms, illuminating the way out of suffering. Character C1's compassion bore fruit in Kondana, the silent grove. There, stars witnessed Dharma's turning wheel. The first teaching's profound impact, a universal declaration, rippled through time, touching generations. This wisdom founded a spiritual tradition, transforming cultures, inspiring art, bringing solace, a path eternally relevant. The air vibrated with echoes of Character C1's words, joy and clarity permeated the sacred space. Efficacy of Dharma, a doorway to understanding, peace, and ultimate freedom from suffering and rebirth had opened for all. Stars emerged fully, revealing the moment's profound significance. The journey to liberation was started. Deer Park became the crucible where spiritual freedom was forged. its light emanating globally for millennia. Sarnath's serene landscape now held a deeper resonance, graced by a teaching transcending words, speaking to existence's heart. Character C1's compassionate gaze, calm authority, and liberating truths forever imprinted. A glorious beginning for all.